What happens when a rock icon's past crashes head-on with live television, and the host refuses to back off? Today, we're unpacking one of the most explosive daytime clashes ever aired. The moment Lenny Kravitz stormed off Sherri Shepherd's set after a confrontation that left the studio in stunned silence. From the second he walked out, the tension was visible. What was meant to be a routine promo for his new album twisted into something far more dangerous. Sherri, known for her blunt interviewing style, wasn't in the mood for fluff. "Lenny, welcome," she began warmly enough, but her eyes told another story. "The album's brilliant, but there's something else our viewers deserve to hear." Lenny's smile faltered. "I'm here to talk about the music, Sherri. That's what matters." "Oh, we'll get there," she pressed. "But first, Marcus Johnson, the guitarist who says you stole his arrangements. The one who claims you shut him out after promising him credits." The shift was instant. Lenny's jaw clenched, his hands gripping the chair. "I think you misunderstand the purpose of this interview." "There's no misunderstanding," Sherri countered. "Marcus contacted our producers. He sent documents, recordings, even emails. He says 3 songs on your breakout album weren't just inspired by him. They were his." The audience went silent. Even Lenny's publicist in the front row looked panicked, signaling desperately at the control booth. "Listen," Lenny snapped, his voice sharp now. "I won't sit here while you assassinate my character with lies from a nobody chasing fame." Sherri didn't flinch. "Nobody. He worked with you for 8 months. He says you promised him co-writing credit. Instead, he claims you blacklisted him when he pushed for what you owed." "That's a lie," Lenny shot back, his composure gone. "I've worked with hundreds of musicians. If every session player thought they deserved a piece of me, I'd be buried under lawsuits." But Sherri leaned in, relentless. "Except this isn't just any player. We've heard the demos. We've seen the emails. We've spoken to people who were in that studio." That was the breaking point. Lenny shot to his feet, fury in every movement. "You have nothing. This is an ambush. And I won't stand for it. I came here to talk about art, not to be smeared with garbage." The studio was electric. Crew members frozen. Cameras rolling as the moment spiraled toward chaos. Sherri didn't flinch. She stayed seated, calm as stone, as if she had rehearsed this exact explosion. "Sit down, Lenny," she said evenly. "We're not finished. If this is fabricated drama, then prove it. Address the allegations. Unless there's something you don't want the world to hear." "I don't have to address anything," Lenny shot back. He stayed on his feet, torn between walking out and salvaging what was left of the interview. "You blindsided me, and now you want me to play along with your ratings circus." "This isn't about ratings," Sherri countered, her voice steady but cutting. "This is about accountability. Marcus Johnson isn't some random name-crying wolf. He has receipts. He deserves to be heard." The standoff crackled with tension. Lenny loomed over Sherri's desk, chest heaving. The audience frozen in stunned silence. Phones rose like a sea of glass, recording every second of what was fast becoming a viral meltdown. "You know what your problem is, Sherri?" Lenny jabbed a finger at her. "You think having a platform makes you judge, jury, and executioner? But I won't be your victim today." "Victim?" Sherri's voice finally spiked, her composure splintering. "The only victim here is Marcus Johnson. He trusted you and you buried him. You want to talk about platforms? You had one of the biggest in music, and you used it to silence the man who helped build it." Lenny's face flushed red. "You don't know what you're talking about. Marcus was a session player. He was paid. End of story." "Really?" Sherri reached for a folder on her desk, snapping it open. She fanned out a handful of papers for the cameras. "Because these contracts say otherwise. These aren't session agreements. They show Marcus was brought in as a collaborator with promised co-writing credits." "Where did you get those?" Lenny barked, panic lacing his voice. "Those are private contracts. Confidential." Sherri held the papers high, her eyes locked on him. "Confidential until they prove an artist was cheated. And Marcus Johnson has every right to speak when the man who wronged him is sitting here pretending it never happened." Lenny stepped closer, towering, his presence meant to intimidate. "You're making a mistake, Sherri. You're playing with fire, and you're playing with the wrong man." "Is that a threat?" Sherri asked, her voice steel. "Because if it is, you just made it on live television in front of the world." "It's not a threat," Lenny growled low and dangerous. "It's a promise. You think you can take me down with cheap theatrics? I've survived longer than you've been on air. I know how to protect myself." The air turned heavy, suffocating. Even the cameraman seemed frozen, afraid to breathe. Protect yourself from what? Sherri pressed. From the truth, from facing the possibility that your empire wasn't built alone, that it may rest on someone else's sweat and silence. My career is built on 40 years of blood, sweat, and talent, Lenny erupted, slamming his fist down on Sher's desk. Papers scattered into the air as the audience gasped. I don't need to steal from anybody, especially not some nobody who couldn't cut it on his own. Some nobody? Sherri fired back, incredulous. Marcus Johnson has worked with giants. The only reason he isn't a household name is because people like you made sure he stayed invisible. People like me? Lenny sneered. You mean successful people? People who built something real. No, Sherri snapped. I mean people who break promises, exploit talent, and then play the victim when they're finally held accountable. The studio trembled with the weight of it. Audience silent, tension unbearable. Then Lenny's palm slammed the desk again harder. Enough. I'm done with this witch hunt. You want to assassinate my character on live TV? Fine. But I won't sit here and let you rewrite my story. Sherri rose from her chair, her voice sharp enough to slice through the silence. I'm asking you direct questions about documented events. Lenny, if that feels like character assassination, maybe you should ask yourself why. You're twisting facts to fit your narrative, Lenny shot back, his tone sharp but cracking at the edges. This was a business dispute. You're turning it into some grand conspiracy. Business dispute? Sherri let out a bitter laugh. Is that what you call it when a man pours his heart and soul into creating music with you only to have his name erased from history? That's not business. That's betrayal. Marcus was compensated, Lenny insisted, clinging to the line like a lifeline. He was paid. He signed releases. He knew the deal. The deal, Sherri pressed, leaning forward now, was supposed to include credits, royalties, recognition. He was promised partnership, not to be discarded the moment it was convenient for you. In the front row, Lenny's publicist was frantically signaling him to stop, but he was too consumed by the confrontation to notice. You weren't there, Lenny snapped through gritted teeth. You don't know what was said, what was agreed to, what the reality was. I know what Marcus told me, Sherri replied, unwavering. I know what the contracts say, and I know what your own people admitted when we asked for comment. My people wouldn't admit anything because there's nothing to admit, Lenny barked. Sherri's eyes narrowed. Your former manager, David Kellerman, had a lot to say about how you handled Marcus. He called it the biggest regret of his career, letting you convince him to cut Marcus out of the credits. The blood drained from Lenny's face. Kellerman had been with him for 15 years. He knew every backroom deal, every compromise, every secret. David's bitter because I fired him, Lenny said. But the words came out thin, brittle. He'll say anything to make me look bad. He didn't sound bitter. Sherri shot back, relentless. He sounded guilty. He sounded like a man trying to atone for helping you bury the truth. Lenny's composure cracked, his bravado slipping. You talked to David? What did he tell you? Sherri's voice was calm, steady, merciless. Everything, Lenny. The late-night calls where you convinced him to rewrite the contracts. The delays you fed Marcus while he begged for updates. The excuses, the lies, all of it. David's a liar, Lenny muttered. But the conviction was gone. His voice was trembling now. Empty words in a room that no longer believed him. He's rewriting history to protect himself, Sherri said coldly. But he can't rewrite your voice, Lenny. We have the recordings, your voicemails to David, your emails, instructions in your own words to strip Marcus Johnson from the credits before he even knew what was happening. The studio was frozen in silence. The audience riveted, as if they were witnessing a live confession. Lenny's eyes darted across the room, searching for an exit that wasn't there. Those messages are out of context, he stammered. You don't understand the pressure, the label, the complications we were under. Complications? Sherri shot back. The only complication I see is that you wanted all the credit, all the money, all the glory, and Marcus Johnson stood in the way of that. The label didn't want unknown writers on the album, Lenny said quickly, grasping for justification. They said it would confuse the marketing. So, you sacrificed him? Sherri's voice cut like glass. You destroyed a young artist's career just to keep your brand spotless. I didn't destroy anything, Lenny protested, but the fight was draining from his tone. Marcus could have built his own career. How? Sherri fired back. When you blacklisted him, when you warned every major producer he was difficult and unreliable. David Kellerman told us everything. Your emails, your phone calls, the campaign you waged to bury him. That's not true, Lenny whispered. But even he sounded unconvinced. We have the proof, Lenny, in writing. Emails to executives, notes to producers. You didn't just cut him out. You made sure he'd never work again. For a moment, Lenny collapsed into his chair, shoulders heavy, the weight of exposure crushing him. But then, in a sudden burst of fury, he leapt to his feet. You want the truth? He roared, his voice echoing through the hushed studio. Fine, the music business isn't charity. It's not about fairness or participation trophies. It's about survival. And survival means making hard decisions. Hard decisions? Sherri repeated, her face hard with disgust. You mean selfish decisions? Decisions that destroyed someone else's life so you could shine brighter. I built my career note by note, album by album, Lenny thundered. I earned this. I bled for this. And I won't apologize for protecting what's mine. What's yours? Sherri rose to her feet again, matching his fire. Those songs weren't just yours. Marcus gave you the hooks, the arrangements, the melodies that made that record legendary. And you stole them? I didn't steal, Lenny bellowed, his composure gone. I collaborated. I transformed. That's what artists do. Real artists, Sherri snapped back, give credit where it's due. They don't erase their collaborators and blacklist them when they ask for what they were promised. You don't understand the pressure, Lenny pleaded, his voice cracking now, the label breathing down my neck, the demand for hits. I understand greed, Sherri cut him off. I understand selfishness, and I understand that you're standing here justifying the destruction of a man's life because you couldn't share the spotlight. The audience was breathless, the silence so heavy it felt physical. Every phone was raised, every camera rolling, capturing the collapse of a legend in real time. Marcus Johnson deserved better from you, Sherri said finally, her voice low but devastating. He trusted you. He believed in you, and you betrayed him in the worst possible way. Stop, Lenny said sharply, raising his hand. Just stop. You've dragged me through the mud on national television. You've humiliated me. Is that what you wanted? Are you satisfied now? This isn't about humiliating you, Lenny, Sherri replied evenly. This is about accountability. It's about making sure Marcus Johnson's story is finally heard and that people understand what really happened. What really happened? Lenny snapped, his voice bitter. Is that a naive kid got swallowed up by the realities of the music business, and now years later, he wants to pin his failures on me. His only failure, Sherri shot back, was trusting you. And your failure is standing here after mountains of evidence and testimony, still pretending you're the victim. Lenny's eyes darted across the studio, his publicist waving frantically for him to leave, security shifting toward the stage. The room vibrated with tension. You want to know what the tragedy is, Lenny? Sherri continued, her voice like a blade. Marcus Johnson still speaks of you with respect. Even after everything, even after you destroyed his dreams, he still calls you talented. That's the kind of man you betrayed. Don't, Lenny croaked, his voice cracking. Don't you dare try to make me feel guilty for business decisions I made decades ago. They weren't business decisions, Sherri fired back. They were moral choices, and you chose wrong. Every time you protected yourself at Marcus' expense. I protected my career, my family, my future, Lenny shouted, his face flushed. That's what anyone would do in my position. No, Lenny, Sherri said coldly. That's what cowards do. Real artists honor their commitments. Real human beings treat their collaborators with respect. You did neither, his face twisted with rage. You self-righteous, sanctimonious witch. You sit there judging me like you've never made a cutthroat decision in your life. The audience gasped. Sherri's expression hardened instantly. Excuse me, did you just call me a witch on my own show? I called you exactly what you are, Lenny snarled. A ratings-hungry opportunist who builds her career by tearing others down. Get out, Sherri said, her voice low and lethal. Get out of my studio now. Gladly, Lenny spat. I should never have agreed to this circus. No, Sherri shot back. You should never have agreed to steal Marcus Johnson's music. But since you did, the least you could do is own up to it instead of attacking the people holding you accountable. Lenny stormed toward the exit, then whirled around, his face contorted with fury. You want the truth about Marcus Johnson? The real truth? He wasn't good enough. He never was. His ideas were basic. His execution amateur. I took his scraps and turned them into something worth listening to. The studio went silent. Even Sherri froze, stunned by the venom in his words. So you admit it, she said quietly. You admit you used his work. Lenny's eyes widened, realizing the trap he had sprung on himself. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Sherri cut him off, rising from her chair, her presence filling the room. You just admitted on live television that Marcus Johnson contributed to your music, Sherri said, her words deliberate, cutting. Contributions you never credited him for. I was speaking hypothetically, Lenny said, his voice cracking with desperation. I was making a point about the creative process. No, Sherri replied, her tone razor-sharp. For the first time since you sat down, you told the truth. You used Marcus Johnson's work, and then you erased him from history. Lenny's publicist rushed onto the stage, grabbing his arm. He ripped it free violently. Get your hands off me. Sir. We need to go now, she whispered, panicked. But Lenny was beyond control. He stepped forward, jabbing a finger toward Sherri. I built an empire. I created a legacy that will outlive all of us. Marcus Johnson is nothing. A footnote who couldn't hack it on his own. You're right about one thing, Sherri shot back coldly. You did build an empire, but you built it on stolen ground, and now the world knows it. Nobody will remember this in a week, Lenny sneered, though his voice wavered. I'll still be a legend. You'll still be a daytime host clawing for relevance. What they'll remember, Sherri countered, is watching you confess to stealing another man's work and then trying to destroy him when you were exposed. What they'll remember is seeing your true character. Security moved in at the producer's signal. The audience shifted uneasily. Don't touch me, Lenny barked at the guards. I'll walk out myself. Actually, Sherri said firmly, you're being escorted out because you've disrespected the show, Marcus Johnson, and everyone watching. This is unbelievable, Lenny shouted as guards flanked him. This is career suicide for you, Sherri. No one in this industry will trust you again. The only career that ended here today is yours, Sherri replied, unwavering. And the only people who won't trust me are the ones with something to hide. As the guards dragged him toward the exit, Lenny twisted back one last time, his face contorted with rage. You have no idea who you're messing with. I know exactly who I'm messing with, Sherri said, her voice ringing through the silence. A man who thought he was untouchable. But today, your lies caught up with you. The cameras followed as Lenny was forced off stage, his publicist trailing behind in shame. The audience sat frozen in stunned silence until applause began to ripple, swelling into a standing ovation for Sherri's unflinching resolve. Facing the cameras, Sherri declared, "That was Lenny Kravitz, showing us exactly who he is when the spotlight exposes the truth instead of hiding it." The screen cut to commercial, leaving viewers with the unforgettable image of a music legend escorted out in disgrace. His empire of secrets crumbling in real time.